This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right. Jimmy Butler, Tyreek Hill, Tyler Van Dyke, Matthew Tkachuk, Jazz Chisholm. That is your list of swag. Who leads it, Manny?
Wow, that's a good one. I would say Jimmy Butler is probably number one. As you see, I'm wearing the Heat cap. I think Jimmy he's all about winning.
He's actually the most proven local swag.
Right.
Local, remember, that's preface what you've accomplished here. We know Tyreek Hill is a Super Bowl champion, so we know he's accomplished more than all of them combined. So I get that, but he just got here. And Jimmy Butler's been here 3 years and been to the finals in the Eastern Conference Finals. So you are correct, sir. But I got to say, Tyler Van Dyke brings that swag.
Yeah, I would say he's up there. I mean, in terms of the quarterback position at Miami and who they've had recently there, I think there's a lot of confidence in Tyler. And I think it does bleed into, the other guys in the room. I do think, Derek King was also a very confident guy in his ability. So the last two quarterbacks, very professional
and very confident, and one of the great leaders we've ever seen at that position for such a short time being here. Because unfortunately, in today's football, we don't get the Steve Walshes anymore for 3 and 4 years, and the Vinny Testaverdes and the Jim Kellys and all that. They're going to hang out for a few years. It just doesn't happen anymore.
No, and again, if this thing gets off on the right foot, Mario get the bulk of the credit, right? If Miami makes the college football playoff and wins an ACC title and all that when all those things happen. But I will look back to Rhett Lashley and that hiring that was made, that he changed the quarterback room in immense ways in terms of bringing in talent and developing that level of confidence in that room. He didn't start off right away, right? Tyler looked a little shaky those first two starts, at least in the first half. But by game three,
but remember, he talked it right from the get-go, and we were like, "Yo, kid, pump the brake." I remember, at least I can speak for myself. I was like, "Yo, kid, pump the brakes a little bit. Don't start talking yet, man." You know what I mean? And yet, he was like, "No, dude, I'm gonna back up what I talk," and he exactly did that, bro.
He did. And, it was right before the NC State game where he was like, I'm not afraid of him. It was kind of like.
Exactly.
And then he went out and beat him. So, that's an interesting storyline to remember if Miami somehow ends up playing NC State in the ACC championship game, because, he went out there, he kind of talked a little trash, and that was the sort of launch point of his career.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. That's why watching Tkachuk, and I don't know how much you follow, but you're a guy that follows all sports.
Right.
You understand how, to me, that was my complaint about the Panthers, that the two guys at the top were supremely talented, but there wasn't a son of a bitch between the two.
Yeah, we talked about that, yeah.
And I kind of think you need that. And watching, I mean, you know the player already, and you see the highlights and all that, but then watching him talk, this is exactly what that locker room needed, and he is Tyler Van Dyke walking into that locker room right now.
Or Jimmy Butler, right? Jimmy came in, and he came into the Heat and did sort of the same thing, where he brought everybody up, to a different level. So I think, yes, I agree with you. I think it's a great comparison on your part to sort of marry this topic to the new hockey player in town.
Yeah, no, it's I think it's interesting. I think it's important, man. Marino had that swag, and he was I could throw it through a hurricane. That's Marino. You know what I mean? And and there's something about that. And listen, I could go back to the '97 Marlins, and that lineup. You're going to tell Devon White he can't do something. You're going to tell Darren Dalton he can't do something. You're going to tell it was loaded with guys, Kevin Brown, everything. They were loaded with guys with swag. They were loaded with a whole, but Moises Alou, that son of a bitch, which I hated him, by the way, because he used to make us wait 45 minutes to an hour after the game, after we talked to the manager, and the son of a bitch was walking around with a Presidente in his hand, talking to everybody, getting iced, and we're all standing there waiting for his soundbite. I'm
Right.
sure you had to do it once or twice in those
Yes.
scrums because he always
Yes.
had a big hit. Like you couldn't, like, he was one of the most clutch players I've ever been around in my entire life was Moises
Yeah.
Alou. And my God, what a pain in the ass he was to cover. But that team was loaded with guys like that. And
Right.
that's why that team was so good. And that's when those elite teams, and you have a Jerome Brown, and he's next to another stud and another stud and another stud, and you're like, what the hell is this? And that's when your team gets to that next level. That it's not you're searching for one leader. No. You've got them in every positional group almost. You've got one of those kind of guys. And I think Cristobal, who, by the way, is the head coach, now that Riley's up in the top, he's the head coach with the most swag he does lead in swag, right? On the head coach part.
Yeah, there's no question. No
right?
question.
I mean, it's
in
not
my
even
mind.
close, right?
No.
I mean, I
no.
love Spo, but he doesn't
Spo
carry
is
the
not.
swag. No,
Spo is a quiet assassin type. He's not going to talk a whole lot.
He's the cerebral. He's the guy that outthinks
Yeah.
you. You know, he's the guy that tells players, look, you do this and this. And then the player goes, wow, holy shit, coach, you're smart. You know, I think that's what the McDaniel effect is going to be. I'm kind of looking
a Spo. You look at him as a Spo. Yeah.
A cerebral type. Yeah. That he's going to communicate with them and connect with them at other levels, personal level, you know, things like that. It's not the raw, intense, let me inspire you type of thing that Riley does. You know what I mean? It's a different type of thing. And I think that's what's going to happen. But definitely the guy you have. And I think that's what Mario is looking for. You know, he's looking for the Ray Lewis to put in his group of linebackers, and he's looking to put you name it, a Russell Wilson, a Russell Maryland, a Jerome Brown, what's it called? The guy was in Arizona forever. What's his name? Damn it, the big defensive lineman. What's his name? Campbell. You know, I think he's looking for all those kind of guys in the different positions.
Yeah,
and that's kind of what he's got to find now. How many of those guys do you think outside of Tyler exist in that locker room right now?
I would say there's probably 3 or 4 other guys that I would look at and say they have that, you know, alpha male ingredient. They're all just young guys, though. They're all guys that just got here within the last year or two. I think Leonard Taylor, the defensive tackle, the 5-star kid out of Miami, Palmetto, he's got that swagger about him, that confidence when he goes out there and dominates. I think it's infectious. I think James Williams.
Is there a Michael Irving out there? Is there
I don't know.
A little Santana Moss, because Santana was a little fiery guy too at the same time. Well, he wasn't Michael Irving, but he still was fiery in his own way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think I'm thinking about the receiver position now, and who really stands out as that confident, guy who's gonna.
It's a young group.
Flip his hand when they get the first down and stare at the defense. I don't know that guy's on the roster right now at that position. I think tight end Elijah Arroyo, I think eventually could be one of those, big time, leaders on your offense because he's a great player and he's very confident in his abilities. I would say James Williams is the other one, the safety. I think he
is, huh? Because he's a super talent. I mean, God,
he's a super talent. I think Cam Kitchens. I look at him. I see Ed Reed type of ability. Where Ed didn't necessarily talk a whole lot when he was a young player, but by the end of his career, when he was that veteran leader. So it just depends on how they develop here the next couple of years. I do see those guys on the defensive side more so than I do on the offensive side right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, because that's really the key. Because when you look at those Canes teams that were successful, of course they were talented. Of course they had great leadership and they were great at recruiting and all that. But those guys had that swag, had that attitude that they already won the game before it actually started. And they all talk about that shit all the time, that, hey, man, we walked in and we knew we had them beat already right from the get-go. And that's the kind, and listen, that's what Alabama does, and that's what Ohio State does, and that's what Georgia does. And they're supremely confident when they walk on there. And I think that's the good thing about Mario. Mario's a guy that is going to know how to instill that kind of confidence in these young people.
Yeah, and I think he connects with a lot of them in that regard, where they respect what he did as a player, and I think that brings out a different level of respect and understanding, right, from a kid who can look at him and say, well, this isn't a guy who just coached. This is a guy who bled and won 2 national championships here as a player. So I think that feeds into the confidence they have in him and trusting him and knowing that this guy knows what he's talking about. It's not just words.
Manny, I don't go crazy on the recruiting rankings, and even more now, I got to be even more careful with it, because you get them to commit doesn't mean that they are committed by a year later, and then a year after that, after they've already committed, you don't even know if they're going to stick around, because if things don't go their way, they're off and running. And hell, now they're talking about unionizing and everything. I mean, this is just crazy already. So it's hard for me to get excited, but I will say, there's this 4-star and that 5-star, and it's coming every week. Where are the rankings now? What's left? Because it looks like they continue to climb those rankings. And my Lord, if they winning to me is going to be like the nail in the coffin on those rankings, because you win, they might get even better. You lose, then they say, oh, it was just hype, we can't believe it. And so then you start to lose people. So it's a really interesting thing, but where are they at right now, and where are they going?
Well, I think they're still in a very strong position. I know it's been 2 weeks since Mario landed a commitment, so everybody's thirsty, right? Everybody's dying. Where's the next one coming?
Hey, slacking. Let's go.
Yeah, he's slacking, right? But look, 14 commitments right now, and I think they slipped out of the top 10 just because other teams are recruiting and adding players. So they're down to number 11 now. Woof, they're not in the top 10 anymore. Freak out. They're number 11. Mario said there's going to be a second wave. There is going to be a second wave. There's going to be a few more commitments this week, in my mind, if these kids decide to pull the trigger this week and not hold off again. They're in it for Jaden Bonsu and Malik Bryant. Those are 2 4-star safety and linebackers that everybody thinks is going to still end up picking Miami and signing with Miami. They have Tommie Kinsler, an offensive lineman who was committed to Florida previously, who may commit on Thursday to Miami. That's all what's scheduled right now. And then they have the Samson Okunlola kid, the 5-star offensive tackle, who has yet to commit to them, but all signs indicate he's going to be Miami kid. Those 4 kids, to me, are the kids that you could see commitments from here before the season. After that, once we get into the season, right, which is what's going to happen here, camp is starting Friday, August 5th for Miami. High school camps are going to be opening up. I think we're going to see a little bit of lull. You don't see many commitments during the season because kids aren't taking trips. They're not visiting. Miami's going to have a barbecue they're hosting here July 30th, where they're going to get some more kids on campus. But it's sort of like, okay, you have a handful of kids left who could commit. And then we get into the season, and we probably wait until November or December for action to really take place again, because that's when those football seasons end and the kids start taking trips, right? Their final official visits, etc. So I think there is a second wave coming, as Mario said. We'll see what happens this week, but there's nothing to panic about at all. And anybody panicking about Mario not getting a couple of kids this past weekend, the Olaso Lennon kid, who we talked about for a long time here on this show. Every time I come on, I've mentioned his name. He picked Alabama. Just one of those situations where he's looking at the board and he sees Miami potentially has 2 5-star offensive tackles. He's a 4-star offensive tackle.
Right.
He picks Alabama because they need an offensive tackle. I mean, when you're having discussions, right? Like, look at the conversation we're having now. Miami's in it for 2 5-star offensive tackles, and there's and essentially a 4-star offensive tackles picking Alabama instead of them. So, right. I mean, you've elevated the conversation from, can Miami even get an offensive tackle to
Yeah. We're not taking him away from Tulane and Air Force anymore.
Right. So to me, that's where Mario has elevated the program without even coaching a game. Again, without even coaching a single
Win,
game.
buddy. I'm gonna go Tyler Shire on you. Win,
Yes.
Rocky. Win, Mario. Win, and that's it. This recruiting stuff is nice and all that, but it only will sustain itself, and it will only get better when you hit the field this year and you win. You
Yes.
beat the teams that maybe sometimes you're not supposed to beat, and you win all the games you're supposed to, and go to a good bowl game and win that bowl game, and then send that message that, yeah, it's back. Come on, join us. That's when he's already done a magnificent job of getting these kids to commit. That doesn't mean they're coming. Understand that. I keep trying to explain that to people, and so do you, that there's this long process before you really even see that kid. Don't get excited until you actually see him on the field playing for the team and playing well. Then you can get excited really about it. But the most important thing is Mario's got to win this year. He's got to win. He's got to send the message that it's not the same Canes. And I'll tell you what, if you don't win the division, that sends a terrible message right from the get-go. You've got to win the division. You've got to put yourself. I don't think anybody's asking him to win the conference. Even though he might have a shot to win the conference, no one's really asking him to win the conference. But, dude, you better win that division.
Right? Well, it's all about momentum, and this is a year-round thing now, right? It's a long, slow dance before she tells you whether or not she's going home with you, right? I mean, that's the way this thing works, and I think it's fascinating to cover because people are so invested in it. Oh, so many people care about recruiting and they pay attention, and they're this 5-star and that 4-star, and they care about it. But the honest to God truth, doing this as long as I have, I mean, it's kind of just a circus to me. And I basically tell my listeners on my podcast, I just recorded a new podcast today with Andrew Farrelly from South Florida Express. We just did a whole recruiting podcast. I tell them over and over again, wake me up in late November when things matter, right before December, and these final trips take place and coaching changes, because to me the coaching changes always affect this more than anything else, because when coaches leave, kids look at the situations and do I still want to go there? Do I still want to go to this school, or am I simply picking them because I can trust the coach? And so yes, we're talking about it at the end of July. We're talking about it in June. We're following along in March and spring and all these camps and all these things that happen. But the reality is, wake me up in late November. That's when I'll pay attention to when this really counts.
Right, exactly. Tell the folks when camp starts.
August 5th, Friday, August 5th. That's the date that a lot of the beat reporters, I guess Mario had shared that with them when he was out there in Charlotte. I, of course, was on vacation last week, enjoying my my last week of vacation before the constant grind. But August 5th, yes, with no life, right? So, and I'm already back working today, so I'm busting my hump already, writing stories, podcasts, all that kind of stuff. But yes, so yes, August 5th, and that's a Friday, and then the season September 3rd, right? So that's when it gets underway at home, a couple of home games, and that trip to Texas A&M. So I think we're gonna get rolling. There's gonna be a ton of content. We're gonna be talking football.
Anything change for you guys? Do you guys get to watch practice, or it's still
just? I don't think we're gonna get to watch much. I think we'll probably get 10 minutes of stretching, 15 minutes, typical type stuff. Mario comes from the Nick Saban school of thought, which is don't show them anything.
Paranoia, big destroyer.
Right.
All right. And, by the way, fans, when will they get a look-see look at the team without it being a game? Do they get any kind of scrimmage from now till the season?
Well, we used to always have Canes Fest, right, where the fans could come and get one day where they can sign autographs. I have yet to hear of any plans for that, and that's kind of been scrapped because of COVID, right, for a while.
Yeah.
So right. I don't know if that.
Now let's throw in also monkeypox too.
Monkeypox and whatever else. Right, Mario's going to try to keep his players far away from everybody as possible. So I do think. I got to ask, but I do think something will happen. There'll be some sort of opportunity, but I don't know to what capacity. If it's just watching, maybe there's no autographs. Who knows? But I got to ask and figure out what's going to happen there.
All right. Follow him on Twitter at Manny_Navarro. And of course, more importantly, subscribe there to The Athletic and support him and catch him twice a week doing his thing here. Our Canes Wear Miami Hurricanes report. Manny, as always, thank you, my brother. Appreciate you.
Anytime. We'll talk to you soon.
You got it. There you go. Manny Navarro and our Canes Wear Miami Hurricanes report.
If you're